up, hello? My name is Emma, and today I'm going to be giving you guys some tips for psychology majors in their undergraduate studies. I recently received my Bachelor's of Science degree in psychology this past December, and it was the most amazing experience. I have so many more psychology major videos planned, and I'm definitely going to be going very in-depth on all of the different classes I took and what I learned from them soon, so you can keep an eye out for what is like a full feature film on my experience as a psych major very soon. But for today, I wanted to just make a video about some tips that I think would be helpful for people entering this field of study. I currently only have 3 tips for this video because I didn't want it to be something like study like this or take notes like this, because I feel like those are things you can learn from any college tip video, and I wanted it to be more specific to psychology. But if you guys do want a video on just general college tips, I would be happy to make it. But I really want this advice to be focused on giving you the most well-rounded and fulfilling experience as a psychology major, as opposed to just getting good grades. I want this to be about maximizing your educational experience independent from your GPA. My first tip is what I consider the most useful tip, and that is to take as many psychology electives as you can. Now, for my particular program, we had 14 required psychology classes to take in order to obtain our degree, which equals out to 42 credits. But across my education, I ended up taking 5 additional psychology classes just as regular electives. And although 5 may not seem like a lot, typically 6 classes equates to a minor in any subject, so it really is a ton of additional information. Personally, I feel like my education would be so incomplete if I didn't take those 5 classes. They really opened me up to so many various areas of psychology, ones that I had maybe wanted to expand upon in general classes, or areas of psychology that I didn't even know existed. For example, in a 100 level general psych course, you're going to get a decent sized introduction to a lot of different areas of psychology, but you'll only be studying that one subject for maybe a few days to a few weeks, as opposed to an entire semester's worth of information on that one subject. So say in general psych, you're on the unit for psych development, and you're learning about how psychology is different for children's, adults, adolescents, and elderly. A year later, you may have already fulfilled your requirement for something like Psych 204, 205, or 206, but you decide that you really want to work with teens and adolescents, maybe in a school setting. You're going to learn so much more about that population in a class dedicated specifically to adolescent psych, as opposed to just a small unit in general psych or developmental psych. Now, around the end of my second year of college, after I had realized that I enjoyed taking psych electives so much more than easy A courses, I was signing up for a class called Positive Psychology that I knew nothing about, but I really just signed up for it because I liked the professor, and my sister also graduated from the same program and told me she liked the class. Little did I know that positive psychology is not only fascinating and growing exponentially in popularity, but it's actually a field I am absolutely going to pull from in my careers and my studies as a mental health counselor. I would highly recommend taking a look at what psych classes are available at your school, what ones fulfill requirements, what ones are options to fill that requirement, and take as many as you feel that you can. Naturally, the downside of this is you will probably have more coursework, as you're going to be taking electives that might be requirements for other students, but if you're somebody who's passionate about psychology and interested in learning about it, the extra benefits from taking more courses is absolutely invaluable. My next tip is to do your best to determine your path after undergrad, or at least consider some things that you might want to do with your degree very early on in your college career. Now, I absolutely understand that not everyone knows what they want to do after college. A lot of the times it is a combination of life experiences, taking different courses, or sometimes something just needs to click at the right moment. I totally get that. Personally, for me, I've known that I wanted to go into a helping profession since I was 15, so picking an actual career path was really easy for me. But on the other hand, I have a ton of friends that are still at school. They have 1 semester left of their psych degree, and they have absolutely no idea what they want to do. Some are taking a gap year to figure it out. A couple have applied to a ton of unrelated grad programs. Everyone is different, and this tip is not to increase additional pressure, but just to offer some advice on how things are going to get a little bit tougher near the end if you don't know what you want to do. Although psychology is a huge field of study, there's like 170 different professions related to it. The fact is that there's not a ton you can do with just a bachelor's in psychology. You'll most likely need to go back to school for either your master's or your PhD. So across your studies, I think it is very helpful to at least consider different careers that you might want to go into, so that the weight of your future isn't solely on your senior year when you have to actually start making those decisions. My best advice for figuring out your personal path is to find the balance between what you're passionate about, what you're good at, and what you're capable of. For me personally, I've always been invested in mental health issues, which is why I fare well in courses like abnormal psychology and clinical counseling, but I've always had a deep fascination with the psychology of criminals, which is why I was a criminal justice minor. So for a very long time, I was really stuck between pursuing a career in counseling or becoming a therapist, or else doing something with behavioral analysis and forensic psychology. But across my studies, I realized I only liked parts of criminology, and the qualifications for the FBI and the typically necessary PhD for becoming a forensic psychologist were not really things I wanted to commit to, nor were they things I believed I would be entirely happy doing for the rest of my life, which is what made the decision to settle on clinical mental health counseling so easy for me. So my suggestion is, by your junior year, if not before, do some very light researching. Find out what careers in psychology interest you. See what their requirements are and if the workload that you're expected to do is something you're actually willing to commit to. Ask your professors for their experience and advice on different career paths. As you're reaching the end of your college education and you feel like you've solidified a few choices that may seem good for you, take a look into what sort of master's, PhD, or PsyD programs are going to help you reach your goals. Unfortunately, I was kind of blindsided by the fact that most master's programs require you to take the graduate record exam or the GRE. I wasn't aware that a lot of programs required more research experience than my college actually offered, or how important internships truly are. Because of that, I spent a lot of the end of my third year and the beginning of my last semester very, very overwhelmed. So that's why I'm suggesting it now, because I know from experience it's not a comfortable position to be in. So this advice is not coming from a place of you need to follow the traditional path of academia, need to know exactly what you want to do the second you want to start, but it's more from my personal experience and from watching fellow psych majors and just knowing that it is so much easier to make these decisions and to get through these difficult moments if you feel a little bit more prepared. And my final tip is to engage in psychology outside of the classroom, and there are so many ways to do this. Consume media that is related to psychology. Watch movies about mental illness, watch documentaries about serial killers, watch TV specials about anything in between. Watch TED Talks on subjects from neuropsychology to drug addiction to what it's like to grow up in a cult. Sign up for some webinars on what's the current state of industrial psychology or new research on antidepressants. Watch YouTubers. If you're looking to be a mental health professional, Katie Morton has fantastic videos. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she makes videos on anything from mental illness to substance abuse to sexual abuse to assault, everything in between. Like Kristen is another YouTuber who is a fellow psychology graduate, and she makes a lot of videos on mental health awareness and self-help. Sarah Hawkinson is the biggest inspiration for this channel, and she's also another student pursuing graduate study in psychology, and she makes videos on anything from mental illness to serial killers to psychological experiments and psych myths, and she's just amazing. Read books, read memoirs, read educational texts, read fiction about mental illness, read memoirs about drug addiction or sexual abuse. Read current research in psychology. There are so many free websites online that you can access by Google. You can use Google Scholar and you'll have free access to a bunch of educational articles. Your college library should have access to different databases, to different psych articles, and you can read all of this in your free time. Gain real life experience. Volunteer or work somewhere that works with people, whether it be children, the elderly, people on the autism spectrum, or it be in community development or crisis intervention. Get research experience and volunteer in a lab. Your professors do have professional context, and they're going to be able to help you get these opportunities. Attend psychology workshops, classes, conferences. As a student, you have access to more of these than you think, and a lot of them are very inexpensive, if not totally free. This is also something that your professors can help you out with. In my school, we actually had a class where we had to go out and attend 9 hours at least 3 different psych events that are out in the real world with professionals, and although I'm now graduated, I'm absolutely planning on emailing my professors and asking them for what ones I can attend as a graduate student because I'm that interested. There's so many ways to continue your education outside of the classroom. Now, I'm aware you're a student, and the thought of spending all of your free time watching psych movies and reading psych books and attending psych events and volunteering sounds extremely exhausting, and I am not saying that whatsoever. You are a student, your priorities are your studies, and I am not suggesting you spend every waking moment learning about psychology. That's just unhealthy. We all need breaks and hobbies and social time to recuperate from how draining studying really is. I'm not suggesting you do absolutely every single thing I just listed at once, but I've given you such a large list to hopefully broaden your perspective on how many different ways you can engage with psychology when you're not at school. For example, after class one day, you can totally watch like 15 minutes of psychology-related YouTube videos. Maybe you want to take a trip to your local Barnes & Noble and pick up Bipolar Disorder for Dummies and read it on your lunch breaks. Maybe you want to take one day, just one day out of your semester and take a couple of classmates to see a psychologist speak at a local college. Little efforts like that do mean a lot. My point is, if you truly love learning about psychology, you are not limited to the confinements of your classroom. There are so many different ways for you to engage in psychology and a variety of methods for you to learn what you're interested in. So that really concludes this video on my tips for psychology majors. I feel like I have learned so much over my 3.5 years of study, and I feel like these are the 3 most meaningful things I would want psych majors to know, whether you are just starting out, whether you are in your 2nd or 3rd year or senior year, or maybe you're just considering pursuing a career in psychology. I think everyone can benefit from these tips. If you're a psych major or a psych graduate, I would love to know your tips below, and if you are somebody who's interested in pursuing psychology, I would love to know why you're interested in the topic. But that is really it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon for a new one. Bye!